All right, everyone, welcome back for another amazing episode of Secrets from the Saddle, all things cycling podcast. And today we have a really amazing person. He was a referral to me from a friend, Jeff Cox, who I know from Scottsdale, Arizona. I've invested in his company. So it's just like, and I talked to him and I said, do you know anybody who is into cycling? He's like, yeah. My friend Cory MortensEn, and he wrote a book and you should meet him. And I was like, all right, sounds like a perfect person to bring on the podcast. So this is Cory's book, The Buddha and the Bee. And I'm telling you, I don't know. So this took place 20 years ago, and he's written it and published it just recently. We're going to talk about this. We're going to bring Cory out. This is so fun. His book is really, really good. And, since then, he's been an entrepreneur. He's ridden for various charities. And we're really going to jump into, how it all started, because I'm really excited to bring this guest to the podcast. Welcome, Cory.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, welcome. And I know you're 3 hours behind. You're 6:30 in the morning. It's cool.
Yeah. I had to get to bed at 5:30 last night to get up this early.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
No.
So I always love asking everybody how they got into cycling, because this is a cycling podcast, but I've had various people. How did you get into cycling?
Well, really how we got into it was non-professionally was when, growing up in Scottsdale as a kid, our school was only about 1.5 miles away, or maybe even a half mile away. And then if we wanted to play Little League or any sports, we always had to bike there. So we had our little BMX makeshift bikes from Schwinn, from Schwinn frames, and then BMX hardware. And then I had a paper route, and that was the way you delivered papers. And so it was really a utilitarian thing, and back in those days, Mom would have you go pick up something at the grocery store. So you would race your time and try to get better. And where we lived at the time, there was a lot of open desert. So those bikes slowly turned into mountain bikes. And then about 1986, Greg LeMond won the Tour de France. And I really didn't know anything about what that was or what racing was, or I didn't even know it was a thing, because I was only 16 years old and I wasn't focused on that. And then I started in my 20s just to kind of get back into shape after college, eating and drinking. I took up mountain biking, and it was really brand new. It was the first mountain bikes didn't have gears. They were old beach cruisers with knobby tires. So it was really just a raw, kind of fun, exciting sport. And we all wore t-shirts and, army surplus shorts and Chuck Taylors, because, it was not really adapted yet. And then over time, I just kept on sticking with it. I have a friend of mine who created a product line called Pack Filler. And it's basically all of us in the middle. None of us win, none of us lose. We just kind of fill the void. And so I feel like I'm part of the pack filler. I'm just one of the guys in the middle, usually in the back middle, but yeah, in the middle. And so now I just do it for fun.
Oh my gosh. So roughly we're probably about the same age, because in the 80s, I was on my bike, and that's how I got to work. I was a country gal, so farm to the village to work, and until I got my license, of course. And then that was dropped. And then I got back on the bike in the early 20s when I bought my first road bike. God, I just had something off the farm when I used to ride. But and then 20s got into cycling. But we're going to start with your book, because I really want to feature this book. I had the pleasure of getting a book. Cory sent it to me, and if you can see, it's all dog-eared, because I sorry, but I took it camping with me.
I like to see them beat up. That means they either
Oh my
read or carried
gosh.
around in a
And I
backpack
have
for a while.
notes in there, and I was like, I got to stop writing all this notes. I just got to read it. But so I actually, Cory, I got this book when I got back from vacation 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was supposed to interview Cory about a week ago, and I said, hey, Cory, do you think I can postpone it so I can actually read your book so we can have something to talk about? And I took it with me to Gas Bay last week, and I read it like whenever I could. And it's been a long time. I don't know if anybody can relate. You sit down and actually read a book from start to finish. Like, I've been into so many personal development books. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need something that's going to be light and fun and relatable. But I have a first question.
Okay.
Where did you get the title?
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
everybody.
I was waiting for it in the back. I'm like, okay, he's gonna say how this all came about, like the Buddha and the bee, because I love it.
Yeah, I was struggling with that. I had the story done and I was trying to come up with some sort of name, and I think my brother at the time we have a pool in our backyard, and he was working at a concrete place, and he had a giant concrete Buddha, and he's like, hey, do you want me to put this Buddha in the backyard for you as an ornament? And I'm like, well, let's just hold off. So then I went up to go hike in the mountains, and I was hiking in the mountains across the street, and it was spring and the bees were out, and I was like, oh yeah, I was kind of looking at the bees on the cactus blooms, and I was like, bees, and I was thinking in the back of my head, my brother's Buddha, and I was just kind of throwing words around. I'm like, well, Buddha and the bee, everybody likes Buddha. Bees are good, everybody likes bees. So then I like, how about the Buddha and the bee? So I put that in my notes, and I came home and I Googled the Buddha and the bee. And as you, in this, one of the first pages, there's actually a quote. And I was like, oh, this quote nails what the book is about. It's basically traveling through the world, unharming it, but learning from it. And I was like, yeah, that's, as the bee does, right? The bee goes and it takes nectar, and then it pollinates, and yeah. So I can't read it from there,
but yeah, as a bee gathers nectar, does not harm or disturb the color and fragrance of the flower, so does the wise move through the world. Buddha.
Yeah. So yeah. I was like, that nailed it. So, I guess synchronicity.
Yeah. And I love the wheel, because I was just like, oh my gosh, is he really going to do that? Yeah, he is.
Well, it's funny about the cover design is I was talking to my editor about it, and she said, what do you want on a cover? I said, I want anything, but I don't want a wheel, and I don't want a road that goes into infinity. And then this is what she came up with. And I said, you know what? That looks really good.
You're like, did I say not, or did I say do it?
Yeah. So I was really happy with the way it turned out.
But I like the broken spoke, because when you read it, we had some serious bike wheel issues at the end.